Chapter 239, Chapter 185, Untouched by Time, Perfect Technique. Chang'an Cave Mansion. Li Chang'an's interest was piqued. This Xiaohu Kun seems to know some exclusive information. He cupped his hands in a fist and asked, Taoist Xia, where is this Chang'an Cave Mansion? It's deep within the ancient wood secret realm. Xiaohu Kun didn't hide anything. He immediately sat down to the side and began to explain the matter in detail. In the depths of the ancient wood secret realm, there is an ancient cave mansion. Outside the main gate, the word Chang'an is carved. The cave mansion's location is extremely well hidden. An ordinary cultivator would never be able to find it. However, he had been lucky back then. While exploring the secret realm, he was chased by a demon beast. Fleeing in a desperate scramble, he unexpectedly escaped into that hidden area and discovered the cave mansion. Outside the cave mansion, there was a skeleton. On the skeleton was a key, the very one Xiaohu Kun now held. At the time, he was overjoyed, thinking he was about to obtain an ancient inheritance. However, upon closer inspection, he discovered 4 keyholes on the cave mansion's main gate, yet he only had 1 key. Over the years, he had been constantly searching for the whereabouts of the other 3 keys. He had already been in contact with the owners of 2 of the other keys for some time. The only one missing was the one in Li Chang'an's hand. Taoist Li, I've been waiting a long time for that key of yours, Xiaohu Kun said with a smile. Li Chang'an also wore a smile, silently analyzing everything Xiaohu Kun had just said. This is the first time we've met, so there's no trust between us. Xiaohu Kun isn't necessarily telling the whole truth. A moment later, another person arrived. This person made no attempt to hide his identity or his strength. I am Mu Qi, greetings to you both fellow Taoists. Mu Qi, at the Qi refining 9th layer of cultivation. He came from the Red Leaf Valley Mu family, one of the 7 great noble families. Due to an ambiguous relationship with his own aunt, he was scorned by countless clan disciples and ultimately defected from his family, becoming a tribulation cultivator. He and Xiaohu Kun had known each other for a long time. Xiaohu Kun said to him, Taoist Mu, is the key you hold still with you? It is, rest assured Taoist Xia. Mu Qi smiled, and an ancient-looking key immediately appeared in his hand. On his key was carved the word wood, which happened to match his surname. And just like that, 3 keys were present, only the last one was missing. The 3 of them waited patiently in the dark room, sometimes sitting in silence, sometimes talking amongst themselves. Taoist Li, when I first obtained this key, an illusion appeared before my eyes. I saw a towering ancient tree. Did you ever experience such an illusion? I did. Li Chang'an didn't hide it and answered truthfully. About an hour later, the last person finally arrived. This person had an average appearance and an average aura. He looked like a very ordinary cultivator whose aura had barely reached the Qi refining 9th layer. However, he was clearly concealing his true appearance and strength. When Li Chang'an used his pupil of truth and saw the man's real face, he was once again surprised. He knew this person as well. It was an old acquaintance named Yi Hao, who had once sought immortality alongside him. Later, Yi Hao had also been rejected by the Cyan Cloud sect. But he hadn't chosen to become a loose cultivator in the marketplace, nor had he joined any of the Qi refining clans that tried to recruit him. Instead, he had left on his own, saying he was going to try his luck at other immortal sects. After so many years apart, I never expected to see him here. Furthermore, the Qi on his body had already reached the Qi refining peak, a clear sign of long and steady accumulation. It seemed he could attempt to break through to Foundation establishment at any moment. You must be Taoist Li fan, correct? I've long heard of your great name, Taoist Li. Yi Hao approached and cupped his hands in a fist. He wasted no time on pleasantries and directly revealed the key in his hand. On this key was carved the word ever. With that, all 4 keys were gathered. The characters on the keys, when put together, formed the phrase ancient wood evergreen. Xiaohu Kun laughed. Excellent. After waiting for so many years, we've finally gathered all 4 keys. I'm eager to see what's truly inside that Chang'an cave mansion. Mu Qi then asked, fellow Taoists, when do you all plan to set out? How about tomorrow? Yi Hao spoke up, saying he still had things to attend to today. Li Chang'an had no objections. This would give him a chance to see what his divination revealed. Xiaohu Kun and Mu Qi glanced at each other and agreed it was no problem. It would give them all time to go back and prepare. And so the four agreed to set out the next day. That night, Chang'an sat cross-legged, quietly waiting for his divination to arrive. At that moment, his heart was far from calm. If this trip goes smoothly, I might be able to obtain the ancient wood evergreen technique and learn the secret of spirit root ascension. If I can't ascend my spiritual root, it will be incredibly difficult to cultivate to the golden core realm with my low-grade spirit root aptitude. Time ticked by, and soon it was midnight. A golden light appeared. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, greatly auspicious. You will travel with Xiahu Kun and the others to the secret realm and successfully open the ancient cave mansion, discovering an ancient inherited cultivation technique. Xiahu Kun will reveal his foundation establishment cultivation and attempt to take the technique for himself, but you will kill him and claim the cultivation technique. Greatly auspicious. Chang'an was overjoyed. A greatly auspicious trigram has finally appeared again. The first greatly auspicious trigram had led him to luckily acquire the profound water turtle. That spirit beast grew quickly and soon broke through to Tier 2, giving him the confidence to face a foundation establishment great cultivator even when he was only at the chi refining 7th layer. Furthermore, its borrowing technique talent was nothing short of heaven-defying and had benefited him greatly. And now, a greatly auspicious trigram had appeared once more. Just killing Xiahu Kun and getting the treasure on his body probably isn't enough to warrant a greatly auspicious rating. The real reason for this divination must be that ancient technique. That cultivation technique, much like the profound water turtle, very likely possesses some kind of heaven-defying characteristic. Perhaps there really is a method for spirit root ascension. Chapter 240, Chapter 185, Impervious to Time, Perfect Technique. Chang'an took a deep breath to calm himself. The cultivation technique isn't in my hands yet. I can't celebrate too early. Tomorrow I have to face Xiahu Kun, a foundation establishment cultivator. I can't be careless. As someone from Yellow Crane Immortal City, and the son of a fake pill great power no less, Xiahu Kun is most likely practicing an earth-grade technique. His magic and spiritual artifacts won't be weak either. He's much stronger than a foundation establishment cultivator who's just a loose cultivator. He only reached foundation establishment a few years ago, and his realm is still at the early stage of foundation establishment. He hasn't accumulated much liquid magical power. The evil soul and the sword array should be enough to suppress him. Still, I should avoid a direct confrontation if possible. It would be best if I could kill him with poison. Chang'an silently calculated his plan. The next day at the crack of dawn, Chang'an got ready and went to the black market as agreed, meeting up with Xiahu Kun and the other two. The group of four discussed for a moment, before setting off for the Black Dragon mountain range. On the surface, all four of them were chi refining cultivators. Chang'an had adjusted his apparent strength, revealing the aura of someone who had just reached the chi refining 9th layer. However, he and Xiahu Kun were both at foundation establishment. Each of the four had their own agenda as they quickly entered the Black Dragon mountain range. After slaying a few demon beasts that tried to ambush them, they successfully arrived at the entrance to the ancient wood secret realm. I'm back again. Chang'an stared at the entrance to the ancient wood secret realm, feeling a sense of nostalgia. It seems I'm quite fated to be here. There are many secret realms around Yellow Crane Immortal City, yet I've ended up at this one several times in a row. Not long after, the group of four entered the secret realm and began to travel through this oppressive world. The journey was not peaceful. Despite being extremely careful, they still encountered several crises. During the most dangerous incident, Xiahu Kun was ambushed and nearly exposed his foundation establishment cultivation. Fortunately, thanks to their combined efforts, they managed to get through each encounter shaken but unharmed. After that, the four of them began to work together with increasing coordination. Before they knew it, dusk had fallen. The four of them killed another group of vicious secret realm demon beasts and found a relatively safe place to rest for a while. During the break, Yihao glanced at Chang'an with a puzzled expression. For some reason, whenever he fought alongside Chang'an, a sense of familiarity would surface, and he found Chang'an to be very approachable. It was as if they were old friends who had known each other for years. And yet they had only just met 2 days ago. Taoist Li, you remind me of an old friend. Oh? Li Chang'an seemed somewhat interested. He smiled and asked, and who might that be? Yihao replied, my big brother from back when I was immortal. He was the one who led me onto the immortal path and saved my life several times along the way. Without him, I wouldn't be here today. Taoist Yi, is this big brother of yours still around? He is, and he's already reached Foundation establishment. After saying this, Yihao sighed wistfully. Seeing his expression, Li Chang'an asked, having a big brother at Foundation establishment should be a happy occasion. Why do you look so melancholic, Taoist Yi? You don't understand, Taoist Li. Back when I parted ways with my big brother and the others, I made a bold declaration that I would definitely reach Foundation establishment before going back to find them. But I'm still only at the Qi refining 9th layer. Yihao's face filled with reminiscence as he spoke of the past. It seems his melancholy stems from his dissatisfaction with his own cultivation. But Li Chang'an sensed that he was hiding something else. Taoist Yi, are you confident you can reach Foundation establishment now? Not in the slightest. Yihao gave a bitter smile and shook his head. Don't you have a senior to guide you, Taoist Yi? To be honest with you, Taoist Li, in my sect, I'm the strongest one there is. Yihao wasn't sure why he trusted Li Chang'an so much, but he had revealed a great deal without even realizing it. Back then, in front of the immortal sect, after he parted from Li Chang'an and the others, he had planned to try his luck elsewhere. Unfortunately, his talent was insufficient, and he hit dead ends everywhere. He once again faced a life-threatening danger on his immortal path. Fortunately, a passing cultivator saved him. That cultivator, who later became his master, belonged to a very small Qi refining sect. The entire sect had just over a dozen members, and the strongest among them was only at the Qi refining 7th layer. I had nowhere else to go at the time, and I was grateful to him for saving my life, so I stayed with the sect. And just like that, Yihao became the cultivator with the lowest seniority in the entire sect. According to him, although the sect was weak, it was very harmonious like a family, not full of conflict like other sects. As he spoke of these past events, a smile unknowingly appeared on Yihao's face. My master and my seniors always protected me, never letting me get involved in anything dangerous. Later, I asked when it would be my turn to protect them, and they said, once I reach Foundation establishment. I see. A smile appeared on Li Chang'an's face. It seems this old friend of mine is doing quite well. The sect may be small, but it's congenial, free of strife, and filled with peace and harmony. A life of cultivation like that is actually what I long for as well. However, reaching Foundation establishment is extremely difficult. You must prepare well, Taoist Yi. Indeed. Yihao sighed again. A moment later, the four of them ended their rest and set off again. In the days that followed, they faced danger many times. They even experienced a collective hallucination, witnessing bloody scenes from an ancient war between immortals. Fortunately, they ultimately arrived at the location of the cave dwelling, shaken but unharmed. We're here. Zaihu Kun led the other three to an area that looked very ordinary. Before them lay a vast lake, its blue-green waters stretching to the horizon. The cave dwelling is beneath the lake's surface. Back then, I had to jump into the lake to escape a pursuing demon beast. With that, Zaihu Kun leaped into the great lake. Li Chang'an and the other two immediately followed. They dove deeper and deeper, soon reaching the very bottom of the vast lake. Chapter 241, Chapter 185, Untouched by the Ages, Perfect Technique. At the bottom of the lake stood an ancient and heavy gate, with the word Chang'an carved on its exterior. Just as Zaihu Kun had said. Outside the gate, a shattered skeleton lay silently. We've arrived, you three. Zaihu Kun slowly came to a halt and sent a sound transmission to the other three. They gathered before the gate and each took out their key. In the next instant, a faint cyan light emanated from all four keys. As if gaining a life of their own, they rose from the cultivator's palms and flew toward the ancient gate. None of the four tried to stop them, they simply watched in silence. In the blink of an eye, the four keys flew into four corresponding holes. A moment later, with a low hum, the gate trembled and began to slowly swing open. Behind the door was a very short passageway. At the end of the passageway was a dark chamber. The four exchanged glances, then moved as one into the passageway. We're finally in. Zaihu Kun sighed in relief and cast a spell, dispelling the lake water from his body. The two sides of the gate were like different worlds. Outside was the cold, silent water of the lake. Inside was dry and warm. The moment he entered, Chang'an froze. His magical power was surging uncontrollably through his meridians. Something in the dark chamber at the end of the passage, some manner of priceless treasure, seemed to be calling to him, resonating strongly with the cultivation technique he practiced. A faint ethereal voice whispered in his ear. A body like ancient wood, evergreen for millennia, indestructible through tribulation, untouched by time. The voice was intermittent, barely there, as if drifting from a distant time and place. In that moment, a realization dawned on Chang'an. Whatever was drawing him from within the dark chamber, it was a perfect technique. In the current cultivation realm, cultivation techniques like spiritual roots were categorized into inferior, low, middle, top, earth, and celestial grades. But Su Yuyan had once told Chang'an that there was a type of technique even greater than a celestial grade technique, one that could only be described as perfect. The ancient wood evergreen technique is actually a perfect technique. Chang'an was shaken to his core. In the cultivation immortality realm, the meaning behind the word perfect was simply too astonishing. After all, things in this world were rarely perfect. There was almost always a flaw. He took a deep breath, struggling to suppress the unusual reaction of his body. Zaihu Kun noticed something was amiss and turned to ask, "Taoist Li, is something wrong?" Chang'an smiled. "It's nothing. I'm just a little excited thinking about the opportunities that might be waiting in this grotto heaven." "Haha, I feel the same way." Zaihu Kun laughed, then took out a puppet and sent it ahead to scout the path. Chang'an and the other two also deployed their own puppets. The passageway was short. After only a few moments, the puppets completed their reconnaissance without encountering any attacks. It seems there are only opportunities here, no danger. The four of them advanced together to the end of the passageway. Almost simultaneously, all their gazes were drawn to a wooden scroll in the center of the chamber, which was emitting a faint cyan glow. In that single instant, all four of them had the same premonition. This was a supreme treasure. If I can get my hands on it, I might be able to change my destiny. The entire chamber was empty, save for the single floating cyan wooden scroll. There were no other treasures. A flash of greed flickered in Chi's eyes. But he knew he couldn't possibly take on the other three, so he was the first to speak. "Everyone, these kinds of wooden scrolls usually contain inheritances like cultivation techniques or magic. There's no need for us to fight. We can just make 3 copies so that each of us gets one." "Agreed." Yihao nodded in agreement. However, just at that moment, Zaihu Kun let out a cold laugh as an aura, far exceeding the chi refining stage, erupted from his body. "It seems the 3 of you have outlived your usefulness." Feeling this aura, the color drained from Chi's and Yihao's faces. A foundation establishment great cultivator. They never would have imagined that among the 4 of them was a foundation establishment powerhouse. In this situation, they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Forget about splitting the treasure, it was questionable whether they would even survive. Chi immediately adopted a subservient posture. "Elder Xia, I won't take any part of today's good fortune. It all belongs to you." He bowed, slowly backing away a couple of steps. But before he could take a third step back, a terrifying pressure, the might of a foundation establishment expert, descended upon him, making his entire body seize up in discomfort. His heart trembled, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. No chi-refining cultivator would ever want to face a hostile foundation establishment great cultivator. Zaihu Kun gave him an indifferent glance. "Chi, did I say you could leave?" Chi's face went pale as he hurriedly begged for mercy. "Elder Xia, this junior is willing to swear on my Tao heart that I will never reveal the slightest detail of what happened here today." "An oath on your Tao heart, that's not enough." Zaihu Kun suddenly tossed a spirit contract in front of Chi. A closer look revealed. It was a servant spirit contract. Once signed, Chi would become his servant, his life and death no longer his own to control. Furthermore, should Zaihu Kun die, Chi would perish along with him. "Elder Xia, this." Chi's expression was pained. He was utterly unwilling to sign such a contract. But Zaihu Kun's attitude was cold and unyielding. "You have 3 breaths, sign it or be buried here." "I'll sign right now." Not daring to resist, Muqi lowered his head and accepted his fate, signing his name on the spirit contract. After he was done, he let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, he thought, at least my life is safe for now. Soon, Zaihu Kun produced 2 more spirit contracts and tossed them to Li Chang'an and Yi Hao. You two, do you want to live or do you want to die? As soon as he finished speaking, his foundation establishment aura intensified, crashing down on the 2 of them like a pair of great mountains. Li Chang'an said nothing. A gently swaying soul banner appeared in his hand. Seeing this, Zaihu Kun couldn't help but laugh. Li Fan, you don't actually think that soul banner in your hand can block my foundation establishment power, do you? How will we know if we don't try? Li Chang'an's expression remained unchanged, and he didn't retreat a single step. Nearby, a look of conflict flashed across Yi Hao's face. He glanced at the spirit contract before him, then at the soul banner in Li Chang'an's hand. Finally, he gritted his teeth and took a few steps to stand beside Li Chang'an. It was an enormous gamble. He had chosen to stand with Li Chang'an against a foundation establishment great cultivator. If he lost this bet, it would cost him his life. Good, very good. It seems you two are determined to die. In that case, don't blame me for what happens next. Zaihu Kun's expression darkened. His aura surged, and his foundation establishment magical power erupted, ready to strike the 2 down where they stood. But in the very next instant, a ferocious, snarling monster shot out from the soul banner. Black mist roiled around it, and its aura was terrifying, as if it had clawed its way out of the netherworld hell itself. It roared and charged at Zaihu Kun. A Tier 2 main soul. Zaihu Kun's expression changed dramatically, and he retreated in a flash. Chapter 242, Chapter 186, Zaihu Hong's Pain. Inside the secret chamber, an eerie chill filled the air. A dense black fog billowed around them, threatening to swallow everything. Zaihu Kun retreated to a safe distance. A flicker of fear crossed his eyes as he stared at the ferocious evil soul. A Tier 2 middle stage main soul, comparable to middle stage of foundation establishment expert. He, on the other hand, had only reached foundation establishment a few years ago. He hadn't accumulated much liquid magical power and was still lingering in the early stage of foundation establishment. Even though my cultivation technique and magic are decent, I might not be a match for that evil soul. Die. With a ferocious expression, the evil soul lunged at Zaihu Kun. Zaihu Kun fell back again and again, casting several spells to barely fend off the evil soul's assault. A few short breaths later, his aura began to destabilize. How can this main soul be so strong? Zaihu Kun's expression turned grim as he secretly swallowed several recovery elixir pills. In reality, this wasn't even the evil soul's full strength. Li Chang'an had communicated with the artifact spirit of the venerable soul banner. A soul's intrinsic power was quite weak. It only grew stronger under the venerable soul banner's amplification by temporarily absorbing the power of the other souls within the banner. Simply put, the power of countless sub-souls was used to nourish a single main soul. But the evil soul did not need nourishment. This was because it was, by its very nature, a conglomerate of countless remnant souls. It had been exceptionally powerful since its creation. Even though time had eroded its strength, it was still comparable to a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation establishment. If it were to gain the power of more sub-souls, it might even be able to rival a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment. Unfortunately, the venerable soul banner itself was of an insufficient tier. Having only recovered to the Tier 2 middle stage, it couldn't yet constrain a Tier 2 late stage main soul. The number of souls within the banner was also insufficient. If Li Chang'an wanted the main soul to become stronger, he would have to go out and harvest more souls. Currently, the venerable soul banner held only a few hundred souls. While they were all high-quality souls from cultivators, the quantity was far too low. If it could be further upgraded to 1,000 souls banner, a 10,000 souls banner, or even 100,000 souls banner, the power it provided would be greatly enhanced. But obtaining so many souls on short notice was no easy task. Unless Li Chang'an directly went to the mortal realm to slaughter mortals. Slaughtering a single small kingdom would be enough to gather 1,000,000 souls. The quality of mortal souls couldn't compare to that of cultivators, but their strength was in their sheer numbers. But slaughtering mortals was, after all, the work of demon cultivators. Even most demon cultivators wouldn't dare do such a thing, because they would inevitably be hunted down by the allied forces of the righteous sects and noble families. I wonder if souls are traded anywhere. If so, I could buy some to replenish my venerable soul banner. As Li Chang'an pondered this, he commanded the evil soul to continue its assault on Xiaohu Kun. At this moment, the black fog had already swallowed most of the secret chamber. Xiaohu Kun dodged and weaved within the remaining cramped space, his expression growing more and more grim. But someone else's expression was even uglier than his. That was Mu Qi, who had just signed the servant spirit contract. How can Li Fan's soul banner contain a Tier 2 middle stage main soul? He was filled with regret, cursing his misfortune inwardly. If I had known, I would have pledged my loyalty to Li Chang'an. If Xiaohu Kun gets killed by the main soul, I'll die along with him. Yi Hao, on the other hand, secretly let out a sigh of relief. He knew he had made the right bet. Thank goodness, he thought with relief. Moments before, he had been on the verge of signing the servant spirit contract. But for some reason, a faint voice in his heart had told him to choose Li Chang'an. Just then, Xiaohu Kun finally began to buckle. His face paled and he roared, "Taoist Li, this inheritance can be copied. Why must we fight to the death? I have yet to use my blood-burning secret technique. If I burn some of my lifespan, your main soul might not be able to stop me." His words were both a plea for peace and a threat. After all, from the outside, Li Chang'an's strength appeared to be only at the qi refining 9th layer. If Xiaohu Kun were to use a secret technique that drained his lifespan, unleash a sudden burst of power, break through the evil soul's blockade, and attack Li Chang'an directly, then Li Chang'an would be at a disadvantage. Taoist Xia is right. Li Chang'an suddenly smiled. He brandished the soul banner, and with a gentle shake, the surrounding black fog ceased its advance. The evil soul also halted its attack. The path of cultivation should prize harmony. Fighting and killing is not my desire. Hearing this, Xiaohu Kun's face twitched. Everyone in this region knows that Li Fan is a harbinger of death. His path to fame is paved with corpses. He literally killed his way to the top. In the current situation, however, he didn't dare to argue and could only play along. Taoist Li is right. In fact, I don't enjoy fighting and killing either. Xiaohu Kun forced a smile. As he spoke, he secretly swallowed a few more recovery elixir pills, desperately trying to restore his depleted energy. However, he suddenly realized something. His magical power had become sluggish. In addition, a faint, burning pain spread through his meridians and internal organs. This is bad. Xiaohu Kun's expression changed drastically. Realizing he had been poisoned, he immediately took out a large number of antitoxic pills. He had operated in this region for years and inevitably had dealings with the 5 poison wanderer lineage. His storage pouch was well stocked with antitoxic pills, including a considerable number of Tier 2 antidote pills. For a moment, he actually managed to suppress the various toxins. Li Fan, you despicable coward, you actually used poison. Have you thrown in your lot with the 5 poison wanderer lineage? Taoist Xia misunderstands. Li Chang'an's expression remained unchanged, his voice calm. Who says only the 5 poison wanderer lineage can use poison? Could it be that he created all the poison techniques in the entire cultivation immortality realm? You! Xiaohu Kun's face contorted with rage. Murderous intent churned within him. He wished he could tear Li Chang'an to pieces. But he knew this was no time to hesitate. While he could still suppress the poison in his body, he had to escape this place immediately and figure out a way to detoxify later. Chapter 243, Chapter 186, Xiaohu Hong's Pain. The next instant, he transformed into a blurry shadow and shot toward the secret room's exit. But the evil soul's figure reappeared, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, its expression ferocious as it lunged to kill. Damn it! Xiaohu Kun's expression was utterly grim. He didn't dare use too much of his magical power right now. He had a faint sense that the more he used, the deeper the poison would corrode him. Li Fan, must you insist on mutual destruction? Xiaohu Kun roared. Li Chang'an replied coolly. Taoist Xia, I'm afraid you think too highly of yourself. Fine, 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 since you insist on forcing my hand. Xiaohu Kun was seething with uncontrollable rage. His eyes filled with bloodshot veins, and the aura around him suddenly surged. He had just used a magic technique that burned his own lifespan. And not only that, He also swallowed several elixir pills that had immense side effects, but could grant a temporary burst of power. Paying any price, he squeezed out his own life force and potential. He gave up on escaping the secret room and instead turned to kill Li Chang'an. As long as he could kill Li Chang'an, he still had a hope of survival. However, it was all in vain. Before he could even get close, another Tier 2 main soul appeared before him. Two Tier 2 main souls. Zai Hukun's face went deathly pale, and a sense of despair began to rise in his heart. He looked at Li Chang'an and saw that he was still perfectly composed, as if he had even more tricks up his sleeve. But he had already exhausted all his options. Who the hell is this Li Fan? Zai Hukun couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. If he had listened to Mu Chi's advice earlier, and the four of them had shared this fortunate opportunity, perhaps things wouldn't have come to this. But now it was too late for regrets. Taoist Li, how about you spare me? I'm willing to sign a servant spirit contract and follow your every command. Having run out of options, Zai Hukun could only sue for peace again. This time, there wasn't the slightest hint of a threat in his words. His posture was already incredibly low. He was practically on the verge of kneeling. Mu Chi also looked at Li Chang'an, his heart pounding with anxiety. If Zai Hukun becomes Li Chang'an's servant, then I'll be the servant of a servant. My status would become even more pathetic, but at least I would survive. But Li Chang'an's expression was cold, and he had no intention of stopping. At the Foundation establishment ceremony not long ago, Zai Huhang had descended from the sky and, casting aside all face, publicly oppressed him, a mere junior. Li Chang'an couldn't defeat Zai Huhang right now, but dealing with his son was no problem at all. With a single thought, the two main souls' attacks grew even more frenzied. A dozen or so breaths later, Zai Hukun could finally no longer suppress the poison in his body. With a pthoo, he spat out a mouthful of dark purple blood. Not only that, but his eyes, nose, and ears all began to stream with the same dark purple, poisonous blood, creating an especially gruesome sight. Li Fan, Zai Hukun roared, struggling with the last of his strength. I am the son of Zai Huhang, a core formation master of Yellow Crane Immortal City. If you dare kill me, my father will hunt you to the ends of the earth and never rest until you are dead. At this point, his own strength was useless. He finally played his last card, his family name. He was trying to use the prestige of Yellow Crane Mountain and his father's fake pill status to intimidate Li Chang'an. But Li Chang'an remained unmoved. So much nonsense. With a wave of his hand, a thick black mist surged forward and completely engulfed Zai Hukun's body. The next instant, a blood-curdling scream was heard. Despair etched on his face, Zai Hukun slowly sank to his knees. In the center of his chest was a large, gory hole. The heart that should have been beating there was gone. The vicious-looking evil soul stood before him, a purplish-red heart clutched in its terrifying claws. Squelch! Its claws suddenly closed, crushing the heart to pulp. Meanwhile, on Yellow Crane Mountain Peak, outside the main hall, Zai Huhang sat beneath a yellow locust tree, the delicate aroma of tea wafting before him. Across from him sat Sima Rui. Sima Rui was still uneasy about what had happened at the banquet earlier. Second senior brother, are we just going to let Li Chang'an off like that? What is there to be afraid of? Zai Huhang smiled nonchalantly. You are in the middle stage of Foundation establishment, while that Li Chang'an is merely in the early stage. Even in a direct fight, he is no match for you. Besides, isn't he just a coward who only knows how to hide inside his arrays? Well, Sima Rui was at a loss for words. It seemed true that Li Chang'an had never taken the initiative to attack, always hiding behind his arrays and other people. How is a personality like that any different from a coward? There was no need to worry at all. What's more, his talent is dreadful, just a low-grade spirit root. So what if he reached Foundation establishment? He'll be lucky to even reach the middle stage of Foundation establishment in this lifetime. In terms of personal potential and cultivation speed, he is far inferior to you. Zai Huhang was perfectly composed as he casually took a sip of tea. A fake pill great power like him had no reason to even give Li Chang'an a second thought. The only reason he had intervened and applied pressure before was because he had accepted Sima Rui's request. If Li Chang'an had really signed that spirit contract, Sima Rui would have been able to rest easy. But because Chen Hualan of the Cyan Cloud sect intervened, the matter did not succeed. Zai Huhang held his teacup, his voice leisurely. Sixth junior brother, you must remember, you are a cultivator under a golden core master. Why bother with such an insignificant person? Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. It was as if he had lost something incredibly important. Zai Huhang's expression changed drastically. He immediately took out 2 dark red jade tokens from his storage pouch. At this moment, one of the jade tokens was shattered. Cunner! Zai Huhang's voice was hoarse, his heart twisting in agony. This was a rare life soul jade token. Once it shattered, it meant its owner was dead. Who killed my son? In his grief and fury, Zai Huhang let out a heart-wrenching roar. The terrifying aura of his core formation cultivation shook the entirety of Yellow Crane Mountain. Even the vast Yellow Crane immortal city could feel this astonishing wave of rage and sorrow. Chapter 244, Chapter 186, Zai Huhang's Anguish. Everyone was shocked. Who had angered a core formation master of the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage? A moment later, a streak of light flew out of Yellow Crane Mountain. Zai Huhang gripped the shattered jade token tightly, his eyes bloodshot, as he flew toward the secluded residence of a Tier 3 divination master. This master had previously acted on behalf of Huang He Master, attempting to divine the identity of Huang Liang's murderer. However, an unexpected mishap occurred, and he failed. He had suffered a backlash from prying into heavenly secrets and was severely injured. Only recently had he managed to recover. Of course, that failure didn't mean his divination abilities were lacking. It was possible the opponent possessed some kind of heaven-defying treasure. Zai Huhang's purpose for this trip was precisely to ask him to act again and divine the identity of Zai Hukun's killer. I'd like to see just who dares to take my son's life. Meanwhile, in the Chang'an cave mansion within the ancient wood's secret realm, with a casual wave of his hand, Li Chang'an summoned Zai Hukun's soul and tossed it into the venerable soul banner. The power of sub-soul within the soul banner is running low. He held the soul banner and briefly sensed its state. The evil soul didn't need sub-souls to maintain its strength at the middle stage of foundation establishment. But for the souls of the Wu family ancestor, Miao Qianshui, and Zai Hukun to maintain their combat power at the early stage of foundation establishment, they all required a large number of sub-souls to sustain them. As it was, the venerable soul banner could sustain 2 at most. Once I have my own Tier 2 dojo and am truly settled, I'll find a way to get more souls. Li Chang'an pondered for a moment before putting away the venerable soul banner. Next, he skillfully took the storage pouch and other treasures from Zai Hukun's body, then cast several talismans to incinerate the corpse into ash. Afterward, he walked over to Mu Chi's body and collected his treasures as well. Taoist Mu, a safe journey. Because of the servant spirit contract, Mu Chi had perished the moment Zai Hukun died. Li Chang'an cast a few more talismans and incinerated his body too. At this point, of the group of 4, only Li Chang'an and Yi Hao remained. Taoist Yi, please take what happened today to your grave. Rest assured, Taoist Li, everyone from the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage deserves to die. I will never speak of today's events to anyone. Yi Hao stared at the ashes that were once Zai Hukun's body, a look of hatred on his face. Li Chang'an was a little surprised. Taoist Yi, could it be that you have a grudge against the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage? That's right. Yi Hao didn't elaborate, but his bone-deep hatred was unmistakable. Afterward, perhaps fearing Li Chang'an wouldn't believe him, he directly swore an oath on his Tao heart, guaranteeing he would remain tight-lipped. Furthermore, he also stated that if Li Chang'an hadn't acted today, he feared his fate would have been uncertain. Therefore, he would not take even a sliver of the opportunities within this cave mansion. They all belonged to Li Chang'an. That works as well. Li Chang'an didn't refuse. Whether it was the perfect technique or the method for ascending one's spiritual route, both were too shocking. The fewer people who knew, the better. He took a deep breath and walked forward. The closer he got to the cyan wooden scroll, the faster the magical power in his body circulated, as if urging him on. I hope it won't disappoint me. Li Chang'an reached out and slowly gripped the wooden scroll. The next instant, his whole body shuddered, and the illusion of the towering ancient wood appeared before his eyes once more. A primitive and ancient sense of time washed over him, sweeping past his body as if trying to carry him to a distant point in space-time. Immediately after, countless ethereal words echoed in his ears, sometimes blurry, sometimes clear, sometimes distant, sometimes near, as if thousands upon thousands of people were speaking to him at once. He lost control of himself. It was as if he had become a tiny seed, buried beneath a bloody earth, finally taking root and sprouting after countless ages, growing with great difficulty. During this time, he was bombarded by rolling thunder and attacked by millions of immortals. But he always stood tall, growing ever more resilient and powerful, as if intending to connect the earth and the heavens with his own trunk. Until one day, the sky suddenly shattered. A vast, boundless hand descended from the heavens, striking down at him. Boom! Chang'an instantly trembled and awoke from the illusion. His face was filled with shock as he stared uncertainly at the wooden scroll in his hand, a trace of lingering fear in his eyes. The scenes that had appeared in the illusion all seemed to have actually happened. However, the current cultivation immortality realm had no records of these events. Both the towering ancient wood and the great hand that descended from the sky seemed to have been erased by time. That giant hand. As Chang'an recalled the great hand that tore the sky, he suddenly had an epiphany. He immediately sat cross-legged, took out the venerable soul banner, and commanded the Tier 2 main soul to guard him. Then he closed his eyes and continuously replayed the image of the great hand in his mind. Unconsciously, he once again entered a state of forgetting himself and the world, as if he had forgotten everything, unable even to perceive the passage of time. Only the thought of comprehending that great hand remained in his mind. Seeing this, Yihao, who was standing to the side, suddenly widened his eyes. Enlightenment. He was shocked and a little envious. This state of enlightenment was something that could only be chanced upon, not sought. Many cultivators went their entire lives without ever entering it. About 1 hour later, Chang'an finally emerged from his state of enlightenment. He opened his eyes, and a hint of ancient vicissitude flashed within them. I comprehended a new magic. Lost in thought, he raised his right hand and slowly pressed down. In that instant, the magical power in his body was instantly drained, transforming into a majestic, powerful hand. This was the magic Chang'an had comprehended by contemplating the great, sky-shattering hand from the illusion. He had a premonition. With this single palm strike, he feared few at the early stage of foundation establishment could withstand it. However, his own magical power was also completely drained. If he failed to defeat his opponent, he would be left in an awkward position. This magic is still imperfect. I haven't fully mastered it yet. Chang'an slowly shook his head, planning to continue perfecting it in the future. Regardless, the power of this magic definitely surpassed that of a top-grade technique. Chang'an couldn't judge its specific tier for now, as the best magic he himself cultivated was only top grade. For now, I'll name it Heaven-Tearing Hand. It sounds pretty badass. Chapter 245, Chapter 187, Double Lifespan Spirit Ascension Technique. This was not Chang'an's first epiphany. In fact, he had experienced many epiphanies before. This was, however, the first time he had gained enlightenment on a specific type of magic. This magic is powerful, but it consumes a lot of energy. Chang'an felt a wave of weakness and quickly took out an elixir pill for recovery, swallowing it. After resting for a moment, he had recovered considerably. His gaze returned to the wooden scroll in his hand, his eyes full of anticipation. There has to be a spirit ascension technique in here. With this hope, Chang'an extended his divine sense into the scroll. In the next instant, 4 large words appeared before his eyes. Ancient Wood Evergreen Technique. Chang'an's heart filled with joy. He suppressed his excitement and continued reading carefully. This cultivation technique was just as he had sensed. It was a perfect technique. Moreover, his Ancient Wood Health cultivation technique was the very prelude to this technique. If he switched to cultivating this evergreen technique and reached the foundation establishment peak, he would accumulate 365 drops of liquid magical power in his danshan. According to the technique's description, this state was the most perfect, increasing the success rate of core formation by 30%. It actually comes with a 30% boost to the core formation success rate. Chang'an was overjoyed, a perfect technique indeed. Furthermore, if he succeeded in core formation, there was a high probability he would condense an immortal golden core. Core formation cultivators also had varying levels of strength. The weakest, naturally, formed a fake pill. The fake pill realm could not even be considered true core formation. A cultivator in this realm possessed less than half the strength of an ordinary golden core master and would be unable to advance for the rest of their life. Above the fake pill was the true pill. The true pill itself was divided into three qualities: high, medium, and low grade. And above the true pill was the immortal golden core mentioned in this cultivation technique. If I can form an immortal golden core, my chances of achieving nascent soul formation in the future will be even greater. Excited, Chang'an continued reading. However, he was soon taken aback. After the section on core formation, there was no nascent soul scroll. The technique simply cut off. This cultivation technique is incomplete. Chang'an gripped the wooden scroll tightly and focused his senses. Just then, he suddenly sensed that in a place extremely far away, there seemed to be another wooden scroll faintly resonating with the one in his hand. However, the place where that wooden scroll was located was simply too far. It was even beyond the borders of the Zhao country cultivation immortality realm that Chang'an knew. It seems that if I reach the golden core realm in the future, I'll have to take a long journey. Chang'an wasn't disappointed. As long as there was a clue to the subsequent parts of the technique, it was good enough. The 3 cultivation scrolls within this wooden scroll were enough for him to cultivate to the golden core peak. He was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. He was still a long way from the golden core peak. Can't rush things, I'll take it slow. Chang'an was in a good state of mind and continued to look through the other contents of the wooden scroll. In this wooden scroll, besides the 3 scrolls for the chi refining, foundation establishment, and core formation techniques, there were 3 other sections. He opened the first section and examined it carefully. Inside, it recorded the origin and characteristics of the ancient wood evergreen technique. The ancient wood evergreen technique is the sect's foundation technique of the ancient wood sect, one of the 9 great sects. It is suitable for cultivators with a wood spirit root to practice. Chang'an had long heard of the 9 ancient major sects, but this was the first time he had learned the name of one of them. The 9 great sects that could rule the ancient cultivation immortality realm were naturally all-powerful. As the sect's foundation technique of such a sect, the ancient wood evergreen technique had many strange and wonderful characteristics. The most prominent among them was life extension. Cultivators who practiced the ancient wood evergreen technique had a lifespan twice that of their peers at the same cultivation level. Reading this, Chang'an's breathing grew ragged. Double the lifespan. A normal foundation establishment cultivator could live past 240 years. If Chang'an switched to this technique, he could live to be 480. With the addition of some life-extending elixir pills and treasures, living past 500 years would be no problem. A lifespan comparable to a golden core master. With such a long life, even with his low-grade spirit root, he had a chance of breaking through to the golden core realm. Besides lifespan, there were several other prominent characteristics. For example, youthful appearance, healing, and spirit plant affinity. A cultivator of this technique was well suited to become a spirit plant master. Evergreen magical power can accelerate the growth of spirit plants. It can even, if one is willing to sacrifice one's own lifespan, instantly mature a spirit plant from a seed. Chang'an was secretly astonished. This effect was simply heaven-defying. Even without consuming one's own lifespan, it could make spirit plants grow far faster than normal. As for consuming his lifespan, he'd rather not. Chang'an thought about it. No spirit plant was as precious as his own life. Additionally, the healing effect of the evergreen technique was even stronger than that of the health cultivation technique. After switching techniques, his own magical power would be equivalent to a spiritual elixir. Therefore, a cultivator of this technique was also suited to becoming a spirit doctor. Among its abilities was a forbidden magic gate that also consumed lifespan. As long as enough life was spent, it could instantly restore a person on the verge of death to a normal state. Chang'an thought it over carefully. He felt there was no one in this world worth sacrificing his own lifespan to save. I probably won't have any use for this magic either. He secretly warned himself that he must never let outsiders know about his cultivation technique and its characteristics. Otherwise, he would certainly meet a terrible end. About a quarter of an hour later, Chang'an finished reading all the content in this section. With a thought, he moved on to the second section. This section recorded two types of magic that complemented the ancient wood evergreen technique. Cyanwood divine light, an attack technique. It condenses evergreen magical power into a devastating ray of divine light. Just by reaching the entry level, its power is comparable to an ordinary celestial grade magic. Ancient wood divine armor, a defense magic. It condenses a layer of divine armor outside the body. The two types of magic, one for attack and one for defense, were of an extremely high tier. Chapter 246, Chapter 187, Double Lifespan Spirit Ascension Technique. Based on the description above, at the entry level, it was already comparable to an ordinary celestial grade magic. If cultivated to minor achievement, it would rival a top-tier celestial grade magic. If I could cultivate it to great success, the power would be truly unimaginable. Chang'an marveled. These two types of magic were exactly what he needed. After all, he was just a loose cultivator with a weak foundation. The best magic he had mastered before was only top grade. It was fine for dealing with other loose cultivators, but it fell short when facing the celestial prides from great noble families or sects. However, among the many types of magic he currently possessed, the small Yimyu sword array was something of an anomaly. Although this sword array was only top grade, it allowed him to fight opponents of a higher tier. Chang'an suspected that it might be a fragmented version of a much more powerful sword array. This Cyanwood divine light and ancient wood divine armor should also give me the ability to fight above my tier, but unfortunately, I'm still missing an escape technique. Chang'an was happy, but he also felt a tinge of regret. His 5 elements escape technique was actually still sufficient. Even among foundation establishment cultivators, a top-grade escape technique was considered quite good. After all, escape techniques were rare to begin with, and finding one that suited you was even rarer. But he still hoped to obtain a better one. Oh well, I'll just have to leave it to fate. Chang'an temporarily pushed the thought aside. He firmly committed the details of these two types of magic to memory, planning to find time to practice them later. Then he moved on to inspect the contents of the final scroll. The moment his divine sense probed it, Chang'an's entire body jolted. Excitement surged through him once more, for he had finally found what he had been waiting for. The Spirit Ascension Technique. The final section within the wooden scroll. It recorded the Spirit Ascension Technique. According to its description, the strength of a cultivator's spiritual root was related to their innate spirit charm. As long as one possessed a single wisp of spirit charm, they could sense the heaven and earth spiritual power and become a cultivator. The more spirit charm one had, the more heaven and earth spiritual power they could sense, and the faster their cultivation speed would be. So in ancient times, spiritual roots were classified by spirit charm. Chang'an was completely absorbed. This was the first time he had ever heard of this concept of spirit charm. According to the records, an inferior spirit root cultivator had between 1 and 10 wisps of spirit charm. A low-grade spirit root cultivator had between 11 and 20 wisps of spirit charm. Soon, Chang'an found a type of magic within called the spirit testing technique. Learning this magic would allow him to see how much spirit charm he possessed. This magic wasn't difficult. In less than a quarter of an hour, he had mastered it. I wonder how many wisps of spirit charm I have. Curious, Chang'an immediately cast the spirit testing technique. A moment later, he could vaguely see 11 faint, drifting wisps of spiritual light inside his body. This was spirit charm. 11 wisps of spirit charm. That just barely meets the threshold for a low-grade spirit root. It seems my spiritual root really is at the very bottom of the low-grade spirit roots. Chang'an lamented. His spiritual root was indeed only slightly better than an inferior spirit root. No wonder his cultivation speed had always been so slow. Without his many fortuitous encounters, he would probably be worse off than Su Fugui and Chu Danyu right now. Fortunately, he now had the Spirit Ascension technique. The requirements for this magic gate were just as the cultivator on the white bone ship had said. It required a heaven and earth spirit root. I just need to win over a heaven and earth spirit root with my own conviction. Once it acknowledges me, I can bind it to myself and enter a special state of symbiosis. Symbiosis. Chang'an was even more surprised when he read this part. A symbiotic relationship between a cultivator and a spirit plant was truly bizarre. However, as long as it could improve his spiritual root, there was nothing he wouldn't accept. According to the description, after achieving a state of symbiosis, the cultivator needed to devote themselves to nurturing the heaven and earth spirit root. As the heaven and earth spirit root grew, it would intercept spirit charm from the world and channel it back into the cultivator, increasing the number of their spirit charm wisps. This was the spirit ascension technique. After he finished reading, Chang'an pondered for a long time. For him, nothing else was a problem. The biggest issue remained the heaven and earth spirit root. This type of spirit plant was incredibly hard to find. Even a golden core master wasn't guaranteed to find one. That spirit plant of the withered wood cliff master, could it really be a heaven and earth spirit root? Chang'an recalled the many rumors about the withered wood cliff master. He had a feeling the withered wood cliff master's strange withered vine was very likely a heaven and earth spirit root. The reason he suffered a backlash was that he hadn't persuaded the heaven and earth spirit root with his conviction, but had tried to subjugate it by force. Unfortunately, that guy has now entered the Black Dragon mountain range. No one knows if he's dead or alive. Chang'an sighed. If he had known the details of the spirit ascension technique earlier, he could have made a deal with the withered wood cliff master while he was still around. But now it was too late for any of that. I'll just have to ask Luo Beidong to keep an eye out for news about the withered wood cliff master, and while he's at it, have him look for all sorts of strange and unusual spirit plants. Aside from that, Chang'an had once heard that the Red Leaf Valley Mu family, one of the 7 great noble families, seemed to possess a heaven and earth spirit root. The Mu family was famous for cultivating spirit plants. With a legacy of Tier 3 spirit plants in their clan, it wouldn't be surprising if they managed to acquire a heaven and earth spirit root. But such a treasure was too rare. The Mu family would never sell it to a foundation establishment loose cultivator like Chang'an. Not unless he could one day reach the Golden Core realm and gain the right to trade with the Mu family as an equal. A heaven and earth spirit root concerns my entire path of cultivation. In the years to come, I should invest more energy in this matter. Chang'an thought to himself. A moment later, he put away the wooden scroll and let out a long breath. All in all, he had obtained basically everything he wanted from this trip to the secret realm. These gains were indeed worthy of the great auspicious trigram. Chang'an was very satisfied and planned to switch his cultivation technique as soon as he returned. Chapter 247, Chapter 187, Double Lifespan Spirit Ascension Technique. However, before that, he still needed to check Xiahu Kun's storage pouch and dispose of anything suspicious inside. Xiahu Kun was the son of a fake pill cultivator after all. His storage pouch should be filled with treasures. Chang'an easily erased the restriction on the storage pouch, opened it, and began to search carefully. As expected, it was indeed full of treasures. There were 4 Tier 2 spiritual artifacts, each of which could be sold for a good price. In addition, there was no shortage of various elixir pills and talismans, even more than what had been in Miao Qianshui's storage pouch. Chang'an also found several treasures needed for body refinement, which were exactly what he could use. There's even a foundation establishment spiritual object. Could this guy have prepared it for his apprentice? With a thought, Chang'an retrieved a 7-colored lotus from within. A 7-leafed colored lotus. This type of foundation establishment spiritual object could increase the success rate by 15%. Back then, Tang Surin had seized a damaged 7-leafed colored lotus, and that very lotus was still in Chang'an's storage pouch. Chang'an never expected he would get another one. This lotus was complete and of extremely high quality. At that moment, Yi Hao, who was standing to the side, spoke cautiously. Taoist Li, have you already reached foundation establishment? That's right. Chang'an didn't deny it. Given the combat prowess he had just displayed, whether he was at foundation establishment or not was a moot point. Yi Hao stared at the 7-leafed colored lotus, his eyes filled with longing. Taoist Li, since you've already reached foundation establishment, could you sell this 7-leafed colored lotus to me? Of course, but can Taoist Yi afford it? Chang'an looked at Yi Hao and asked in a deep voice. Although this man was an old friend, he had no intention of giving it away for free. After all, he had fought hard to obtain it. Hearing this, a hint of conflict flashed across Yi Hao's face. After a moment, he gritted his teeth, seemingly having made up his mind. Taoist Li, I have a treasure that you might be able to use, but its value is far too high. This 7-leafed colored lotus isn't enough. I also want a foundation establishment pill. As a foundation establishment great cultivator, you should have a way to get one. Oh? Chang'an was instantly interested. He asked with a smile, Taoist Yi, what kind of treasure could possibly be worth a foundation establishment pill and a 7-leafed colored lotus? A tier 3 grand array. What? Chang'an's spirit soared. He stared at Yi Hao, a sense of disbelief rising in his heart. This old friend is only at the Qi refining 9th layer, yet he managed to obtain a tier 3 opportunity. Taoist Yi, I must see this tier 3 grand array. All right. Yi Hao was decisive. Without any further hesitation, he immediately took a token from his storage pouch. The token looked unremarkable, without the slightest fluctuation of magical power. But on its edge, there was a nearly invisible silver dot. So that's how it is. Chang'an had a sudden realization. Yi Hao had actually obtained a divine sense storage treasure. This type of magical treasure didn't react to magical power, so it could easily be mistaken for an ordinary object. Taoist Li, that tier 3 array is inside this token, but the token itself is not a magical artifact. I know. With a casual wave of his hand, Chang'an summoned the token into his grasp. He extended a wisp of his divine sense, touched the silver dot, and a dark, empty space immediately appeared before his mind's eye. Within this space, over 1,000 array flags and various precious treasures needed for array formation were neatly arranged. In addition, there was also a jade scroll. Chang'an sent his divine sense into the jade scroll and obtained information about the array. Tier 3 low-grade array, the green wood transformation array. This array was of extremely high quality, verging on high quality, and specialized in trapping and killing enemies. Though it lacked the effects of an illusion array, it could perfectly blend into the landscape, transforming into trees and flowers, causing people to unwittingly fall into the array. The more Chang'an learned, the more delighted he became. If he set up this tier 3 grand array, he could handle even a core formation expert who dared to trespass. Tier 3 grand arrays were extremely difficult to break. At this tier, ordinary array-breaking treasures and methods were essentially useless. In Tier 3, array-breaking treasures were exceedingly rare. Even a golden core master might not be able to find one. Taoist Yi, the value of this array far exceeds 1 foundation establishment pill and 1 foundation establishment spiritual object. I know. Yi Hao sounded a bit helpless and let out a sigh. The grand array was great, but he had no use for it right now. An array of this tier consumed a shocking amount of spirit stones, far more than he could ever afford. The foundation establishment pill and the foundation establishment spiritual object, on the other hand, were what he desired most right now. As long as he could reach foundation establishment, this trade would be worth it. Taoist Yi certainly trusts me. Chang'an smiled and put the array away. The next instant, a small jade bottle appeared in his hand. Sealed inside the bottle was none other than a foundation establishment pill. Taoist Yi, while the quality of this foundation establishment pill doesn't reach the high-quality grade, it is better than an ordinary one. With that said, Chang'an handed over both the elixir pill and the 7-leafed colored lotus. Yi Hao's expression was one of excitement. He took the 2 treasures, his hands trembling slightly. Thank you, Taoist Li. I'm the one who should be thanking you, Chang'an said with a smile. He really made a huge profit from this exchange. Taoist Yi, when do you plan to attempt your foundation establishment? Today. So soon. Yes. Yi Hao put away the 2 treasures and explained to Chang'an. He had just been struck by a sudden inspiration and felt that today was the perfect time for his foundation establishment. If he missed this current state of mind, the next time he tried to reach foundation establishment, his chances of success might be much lower. Chang'an frowned and said, but there's no tier 2 spirit vein here. Taoist Yi, have you thought this through? There is. Not far from here, there's a tier 2 spirit vein, but there might be demon beasts harassing the area. I must ask Taoist Li to set up a grand array and act as my protector. All right. Chang'an agreed immediately. If Yi Hao succeeded, he would have another friend at the Foundation establishment realm. A short while later, the two left Chang'an Cave Mansion and headed straight for the Tier 2 spirit vein Yi Hao had mentioned. Yi Hao's surprise, the Tier 2 spirit vein was already occupied by a Tier 2 demon beast. His expression immediately turned sour. Taoist Li, this Tier 2 demon beast wasn't here the last time I found this place. No matter. Li Chang'an's figure flickered, and in an instant he appeared above the Tier 2 spirit vein. He stretched out his right hand and pressed down fiercely toward the spirit beast below. Boom! A gigantic hand of astonishing power suddenly descended from the sky, magnificent, majestic, and unstoppable, as if it had come from beyond the heavens. Before the Tier 2 spirit beast could even react, it was struck and instantly exploded into pieces. An instant kill. This scene left Yi Hao utterly dumbfounded. Tier 2 demon beasts were difficult to deal with. Otherwise, Tier 2 demon cores wouldn't be so rare. Yet Li Chang'an had managed to kill one in an instant, seemingly without any effort, as if he had just crushed an ant. Little did he know, Li Chang'an's magical power had been completely drained once again. He sighed inwardly. He still hadn't controlled it well this time. I still need to practice this Taoist technique more. He landed on the ground, collected the flesh, blood, and demon core, and swallowed a few recovery elixir pills. He then turned his head and prompted, Taoist Yi, what are you standing there dazed for? Get over here. Oh, right. Yi Hao took a deep breath, suppressing the shock in his heart. He came to the spot on the spirit vein where the spiritual power was densest, sat down cross-legged, and began to adjust his condition. Meanwhile, Li Chang'an moved like a series of afterimages, setting up an array in the surroundings. It was another Tier 2 array. As for the Tier 3 array, he was completely unfamiliar with it and had no hope of setting it up today. After a while, the array formation was complete. Li Chang'an entered the grand array and checked on Yi Hao's condition. His magical power accumulation is profound, his condition is excellent, and he has all the necessary treasures. But success or failure is still hard to say. Meanwhile, in the southern domain of the Zhao country cultivation immortality realm, on a rather secluded Tier 3 spirit vein, the Tier 3 divination master, Wang Chunfeng, lived here in seclusion. Previously, he had suffered grievous injuries and lost a significant amount of his lifespan, while helping Huang He master divine the identity of an assassin. Although he had now managed to recover from his injuries, his lost lifespan could not be restored. Today, Zai Huhang paid a sudden visit, requesting his help in exchange for a life-extending treasure. Taoist Wang, my son was murdered by a villain. I must trouble you to perform a divination for me and find the killer's identity. Alas, this is a difficult matter. Wang Chunfeng looked troubled, hinting at his intention to refuse. Zai Huhang took out another life-extending treasure. The two treasures combined were enough to extend one's life by 30 years. Wang Chunfeng couldn't help but be tempted. He let out a soft sigh. Fine, I shall take action just this once. 30 years of life in exchange for taking action once, a worthy trade. Chapter 248, Chapter 188, A Golden Core's Longevity, Li Chang'an's Dao Field. Divining the true culprit's name might cost him a few years of his lifespan, but a life-extending treasure would be enough to compensate for the loss. Wang Chunfeng took out a pristine white turtle shell. His expression was solemn. He muttered an incantation as his hands formed a seal, and his robes began to flutter without a breath of wind. The turtle shell slowly spun, its surface revealing a series of fine, intricate patterns. It seemed they were trying to form a name. But suddenly, Wang Chunfeng's expression changed drastically. SBFFD. His whole body trembled as he spat a mouthful of blood and collapsed, stiff as a board. This scene gave Zai Huhang a sense of déjà vu. He hurried forward and caught Wang Chunfeng. Taoist Wang, what's wrong? Wang Chunfeng's face was deathly pale. His body instantly withered, his hair and beard rapidly turned gray, and his aura plummeted to rock bottom. The backlash from prying into heaven's secrets was even more severe than last time. In a single instant, he had lost 100 years of his lifespan. He looked utterly wizened, his heart filled with both terror and regret. A Golden Core Master only has a total lifespan of 500 years. This single attempt had cost him a full 20% of it. If I had known this would happen, he thought, I should have refused Zai Hong's request. How could this be? Zai Hong was shocked as he felt Wang Chunfeng's weakened state. What on earth did he try to divine to suffer such a severe heavenly backlash? But Wang Chunfeng couldn't utter a single word. He dipped a withered finger in his own blood and tremblingly wrote a line of words. Yellow Crane Mountain lineage, do not seek me out again. On this day, the Tier 3 divination master, Wang Chunfeng, announced he was sealing his mountain and going into complete seclusion, no longer accepting any requests for divination. The news spread rapidly throughout the entire Zhao country cultivation immortality realm. According to rumor, he had used his divination technique to scry some taboo existence, suffering a heavenly backlash that left him with little lifespan to spare. Countless people were puzzled. What was this taboo existence? At this moment, Li Chang'an was still inside the secret realm. He glanced up at the sky, sensing something was off. Just now, someone used a divination technique to try and scry me again. He wasn't the least bit worried. On the contrary, a slight smile appeared on his face. I wonder how badly that divination master was hit by the heavenly backlash. With the divination protecting him, Li Chang'an had nothing to fear. In the current cultivation immortality realm, it was unlikely anyone could successfully divine his identity. Just as he was thinking this, the heaven and earth spiritual power in the area suddenly stirred. The spiritual power beneath the sky gathered frantically, forming a vortex about 100 jang wide. He's starting the magic power barrier this quickly, Li Chang'an thought, glancing at the sky. It seems his foundation is solid. A moment later, he struck out, killing a few demon beasts that had rushed over, ensuring Yi Hao's foundation establishment would not be disturbed. Time flew by, and several hours passed in the blink of an eye. The night had grown deep. Today's divination had indicated neutral, and no accidents had occurred. Li Chang'an felt a little more at ease and continued to act as Yi Hao's protector. Another 2 hours passed. The spiritual power vortex in the sky stagnated and slowly dissipated. This meant Yi Hao had passed the magic power barrier, and only the final divine sense barrier remained. There shouldn't be any problems now, Li Chang'an mused. Generally speaking, if the magic power barrier went so smoothly, the divine sense barrier would almost certainly pose no issue. Sure enough, 1 hour later, a loud laugh echoed from within the array. Haha, after decades of seeking the Tao, I've finally reached foundation establishment. Yi Hao walked out of the array, his foundation establishment aura radiating from him. Li Chang'an smiled and cupped his hands in a salute. Congratulations, Taoist Yi. Many thanks for your help, Taoist Li. Yi Hao thanked him solemnly. Without Li Chang'an, he wouldn't even have a Tier 2 spirit vein, let alone be able to attempt foundation establishment. He secretly sized up Li Chang'an, a sense of shock rising in his heart. Even though he had now reached foundation establishment, he still couldn't see through Li Chang'an or discern his true cultivation level. He's probably already advanced to the middle stage of foundation establishment, but he's been masquerading as a chi-refining cultivator all this time. He's being far too cautious, Yi Hao grumbled to himself. A foundation establishment, great cultivator, hanging around with a group of chi-refining cultivators. People would laugh if word got out. Just then, a streak of light suddenly shot across the distant horizon. Swoosh! In an instant, the streak of light was right in front of Yi Hao. A sneak attack. Both of their expressions changed, and they were just about to act. However, before they could intercept it, the streak of light merged into Yi Hao's body and vanished. What's happening? Yi Hao's body trembled, and he immediately looked inward, inspecting himself. Li Chang'an, however, slowly took 2 steps back, watching him warily. There were too many strange things in the secret realm. He had to be on guard. Taoist Yi, what was that streak of light? Taoist Li, Yi Hao paused. His expression shifted rapidly, from worry to bewilderment and finally to a slowly dawning joy. Taoist Li, I think I may have just received a fortunate opportunity. A fortunate opportunity. That's right, the streak of light was a ring. I can't determine its tier. Yi Hao described it in detail. The ring was hovering silently above his danchan, exuding an ancient, weathered aura, as if it had come from the distant ancient era. After listening to him, Li Chang'an was inwardly surprised and sized Yi Hao up carefully. This old friend's luck is a bit too good. First he gets a Tier 3 grand array, and now he's been chosen by an ancient treasure. Could he be a legendary son of fortune? Unfortunately, Li Chang'an didn't know any magic gate for inspecting one's fortune. Taoist Yi, are you sure that ring is a fortunate opportunity and not some kind of cursed object? I don't think so. I didn't sense any dangerous aura from it. In fact, I felt a hint of goodwill. Yihao earnestly described what he felt. After hearing this, Li Chang'an couldn't judge whether the ring was good or bad, so he could only wish him luck. Afterward, he dismantled the surrounding array and prepared to leave the secret realm. Before leaving, Chapter 249, Chapter 188, Golden Core Longevity, Li Chang'an's Tao Field. He glanced at the Tier 2 spirit vein, a sense of regret rising in his heart. This spirit vein is a decent tier, and it's unoccupied. It's a shame it's so deep inside the secret realm. If it were in the outside world, it could become my sanctum. With that regretful thought, he didn't linger and departed with Yihao. Since they both had foundation establishment cultivation, the return journey was much easier. Along the way, Li Chang'an found a random spot to discard the suspicious items from Zaihu Kun's storage pouch. A few days later, they successfully exited the secret realm. Yihao suddenly extended an invitation to Li Chang'an. Taoist Li, I have a feud with the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage. I intend to establish the Huang Alliance. Are you willing to join? The Huang Alliance. Li Chang'an froze. After a moment's thought, he shook his head slightly. Taoist Yi, I'm used to my freedom and don't wish to join any faction. Yihao had expected as much, but he was still a little disappointed. If you change your mind in the future, Taoist Li, you can come find me anytime. All right, Li Chang'an replied, but he didn't give the offer much thought. He was, however, a little curious about something. Taoist Yi, by openly opposing the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage, aren't you worried about implicating your own sect? At these words, a trace of melancholy appeared on Yihao's face. He sighed softly and didn't elaborate, simply inviting Li Chang'an to visit his sect as a guest. Before long, the two of them arrived at Yihao's sect. Upon seeing the state of the sect, Li Chang'an instantly understood. So, Taoist Yi's sect was destroyed by the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage. What lay before his eyes were the dilapidated ruins of a sect. The main hall had collapsed and the library pavilion was in pieces. There was nothing of the warm scene Yihao had described before, only overgrown grass, withered vines, and more than 10 low grave mounds. Li Chang'an's thoughts subconsciously drifted to Mu Qiuyan. Who would have thought? Of his two old friends, one was fighting the Cyan Cloud sect, while the other had embarked on a path of opposition against Yellow Crane Mountain. Yihao slowly descended, landing before the collapsed main hall of the sect. His voice was slow as he began to recount what had happened here. Back then, my master was exploring a secret realm and unexpectedly discovered a Foundation establishment spiritual object. He brought it safely back to the sect, intending for me to use it when I reached Foundation establishment. But word leaked out and a disciple from the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage heard about it. To snatch the spiritual object, that person enlisted his master, Fang Yi, the 10th disciple of Huang He Master. Fang Yi was a Foundation establishment great cultivator. How could this small Qi refining sect possibly stand against him? At the time, Yihao's master hid him deep underground beneath the sect and presented the Foundation establishment's spiritual object to Fang Yi, humbly begging him to let them go. Fang Yi agreed at first, but after taking the Foundation establishment's spiritual object, he went back on his word and struck the entire sect with a single palm strike. It was that very palm strike that left the ruins Li Chang'an now saw before him. Hiding deep underground, Yihao was severely injured. When he finally mustered the strength to crawl out from the sect's ruins, he was met with the sight of more than 10 mangled corpses. Back then, I asked my master and the others when it would be my turn to protect them. They all said all I had to do was reach Foundation establishment. Yihao walked slowly toward the dozen or so low grave mounds. With a desolate expression, he sighed sorrowfully. Master, senior brothers, senior sisters, I've reached Foundation establishment. I can finally protect you all now. This old friend's life over the past few years hasn't been nearly as easy as I imagined. In fact, his sect was destroyed when he was only at the Qi refining 4th layer. Before that, his master had arranged a marriage for him, but after the sect was destroyed, the engagement was naturally broken. The bride's family came to his door to call off the engagement, forcing him to sign a spirit contract to formally annul it. Later, heartbroken and dispirited, he returned to the mortal world to see his family, only to learn that his parents had already died of illness. A mysterious passerby discovered that his younger sister possessed a spiritual root and took her away. Her whereabouts remain unknown to this day. Just like that, he had lost everything. He fell into a deep depression for a long time before finally pulling himself together, using revenge as his motivation to continue forging ahead on the immortal path. After hearing the whole story, Chang'an was secretly astonished. Sect annihilated, parents dead, engagement broken, and his sister was taken away by some mysterious person. This guy. Doesn't that sound just like the protagonist of some mortal world folktale? Besides, Yihao's luck is just too good. According to him, he's faced countless crises over the years, but every single time, he's managed to turn peril into safety, either by being rescued by a benefactor or by finding some hidden opportunity within the crisis itself. This time, during the trip to the Chang'an cave mansion, I was his benefactor. Not only did I save his life, but I also helped him get the Foundation establishment treasure he'd always wanted. Yihao suddenly spoke up. Taoist Li, I've heard that you accept missions to kill, to execute those guilty of heinous crimes. Chang'an nodded. He did occasionally take on such missions. After all, his body refinement consumed a vast amount of resources, and he needed to earn some extra income on the side. Yihao then asked, in the future, when I make my move against the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage, if I run into an enemy who's too much for me to handle, could I hire you to take action? As long as the price is right, we can discuss anything. Chang'an didn't refuse. He already planned to deal with the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage himself. Their goals were in fact aligned. After some more conversation, Chang'an departed and returned to Yellow Crane Immortal City. That night, in his residence, Chang'an sat cross-legged and began to switch his cultivation technique. The ancient wood health cultivation technique he was currently practicing was merely a primer for the ancient wood longevity technique, so the transition went very smoothly. On the evening of the third day, Chang'an successfully completed the transition. Within his dantian, there were now 15 drops of cyan green evergreen magical power. He cast the minor magic that Su Yuyan had taught him to sense the upper limit of the cultivation technique. Just as I thought, the upper limit of this cultivation technique is 365 drops of liquid magical power. Chapter 250, Chapter 188, A Golden Core's Longevity, Chang'an's Taoist Sanctum. A look of joy appeared on Chang'an's face. With a thought, he circulated his cultivation technique. His efficiency at absorbing heaven and earth spiritual power was far greater than before. Even in the ancient cultivation immortality realm, the ancient wood evergreen technique was a top-tier cultivation technique. From now on, when Chang'an faced the celestial prides of the great noble families and major sects, he would no longer be at a disadvantage with his cultivation technique. In fact, he might even have an edge. If they were at the same realm, his accumulated magical power would undoubtedly be greater. Moreover, although his appearance hadn't changed, he could clearly feel that he had grown younger. 480 years of lifespan. Chang'an was all smiles, in high spirits. He was now in his 50s, having only lived a small fraction of his entire life. He still had over 400 years left. At this thought, he retrieved an elixir pill from his storage pouch with a thought. A Tier 1 lifespan extension pill. It can extend one's lifespan by 5 years. Each cultivator could only take one such elixir pill in their lifetime. A second one would have no effect. After meditating for a moment to regulate his breath, Chang'an swallowed the lifespan extension pill. A moment later, the medicinal power dissolved and spread throughout his body. A profound and mysterious aura of time began to permeate the air. Chang'an sat cross-legged, silently comprehending the sensation. After a moment, a flash of joy appeared in his eyes. A 10-year extension. Perhaps due to the unique properties of the ancient wood evergreen technique, the effect of this lifespan extension pill had actually doubled. With this, Chang'an's lifespan reached 490 years. Furthermore, he had a feeling he could take even more Tier 1 lifespan extension pills. Let's give it a try. With a thought, another lifespan extension pill appeared in Chang'an's hand. This type of elixir pill was very precious. Although it was only Tier 1, its value surpassed most Tier 2 treasures, and many cultivators couldn't buy one even if they wanted to. Fortunately, he himself was an alchemist. As long as he had the materials, he could refine them at any time. A moment later, Chang'an swallowed the second lifespan extension pill. This time, he once again felt that mysterious aura of time, but it didn't last as long as the previous one. A 7-year extension. A smile appeared on his face. He knew he had guessed correctly. Although the lifespan extending effect of this pill was not as good as the first, it was still effective. Afterward, Chang'an took 3 more Tier 1 lifespan extension pills in succession, extending his life by 4 years, 1.5 years, and several months, respectively. When he swallowed the 6th lifespan extension pill, the effect was reduced to just over 10 days. It was almost nothing. My lifespan has reached 503 years, surpassing the threshold for a golden core cultivator. Chang'an carefully sensed his condition. If word of such a long lifespan were to get out, it would surely cause a massive uproar. He knew he had to keep a low profile and not let anyone find out. After regulating his breath for a moment, Chang'an's mind stirred, and he took out a Tier 2 lifespan extension pill. He wasn't a Tier 2 alchemist yet. He had found this lifespan extension pill in Miao Qianshui's storage pouch. A Tier 2 lifespan extension pill. Under normal circumstances, it can extend one's lifespan by 10 years. Chang'an pondered, can the effect of this pill also be doubled? He swallowed it in one gulp. As the medicinal power dissolved, the mysterious aura of time surged forth once more, lasting for a long time. A 20-year extension. Chang'an beamed with joy. It really could be doubled. Moreover, he felt he could take even more Tier 2 lifespan extension pills. However, he didn't have any more at the moment. After a while, Chang'an took out the 10,000 years green and refined, and consumed it. Under normal circumstances, this 10,000 years green could also extend one's lifespan by 10 years. But when it acted on Chang'an, the effect also doubled, extending his life by 20 years. At this point, Chang'an's lifespan reached 543 years. Many golden core cultivators couldn't even live that long. I still have nearly 500 years to live. Chang'an carefully sensed his own condition, feeling completely satisfied. He glanced in the direction of Yellow Crane Mountain. He calculated carefully. Huang He Master had achieved the golden core realm over 200 years ago. At most, he only had about 200 years of lifespan left. In other words, even if he just waited it out, Chang'an could outlive Huang He Master. This is the advantage of a long life. Chang'an mused. A few days later, Chang'an went to the 10,000 Treasures Tower to ask about Tier 2 lifespan extension pills and learned that they were not currently for sale. Every time a new batch of these elixir pills was produced, it would be bought up by various factions. One had to pre-order them. Manager Jin, please help me pre-order one. Chang'an paid the deposit. Jin Yue had a strange expression as he accepted the deposit. Elder Li, these lifespan extension pills are extremely expensive. Usually, only old Foundation establishment cultivators with little lifespan remaining buy them. You are still young. Your spirit stones should be used for more important things. For me, lifespan is one of the most important things. Chang'an chuckled. If he weren't afraid of exposing the characteristics of his evergreen technique, he would have even wanted to pre-order several more. By the way, Manager Jin, does your Jin family have any particularly precious spirit plants for sale? Spirit plants, Elder Li, how precious are we talking? The more precious the better. For example, things like ancient spirit seeds, Tier 3 spirit plants, or heaven and earth spirit roots. This. Jin Yue looked troubled. He shook his head, explaining that his authority within the family wasn't high enough to have access to such precious treasures. Any treasure that reached Tier 3 had to be reviewed by the Jin family's golden core ancestor, and every transaction required his personal approval. Elder Li, how about I help you contact the ancestor? That won't be necessary. Chang'an had no desire to come face-to-face with the golden core ancestor of a merchant family. After some more conversation, he left the 10,000 Treasures Tower and returned to his residence. Not long after, Su Yuyan suddenly came to him with good news. The Tier 2 spirit vein that Chang'an wanted was now available. Brother Li, A Tier 2 top-grade spirit vein just became available recently. Su Yuyan offered a faint, pleasant-sounding smile as she explained the situation to Li Chang'an. The location of the spirit vein was quite good. It was located right between Yellow Crane Immortal City and King Marketplace, and it wasn't far from several other marketplaces. Its tier also met Li Chang'an's requirements. It was enough for him to cultivate to the peak of Foundation Establishment. The one who had originally leased the spirit vein was a Tier 2 alchemist. In order to obtain a certain rare demon beast essence blood, he had ventured into the Black Dragon Mountain range, was careless, and suffered heavy injuries. He passed away not long after returning. Su Yuyan said with a bright smile, "Brother Li, that fellow cultivator really died at the perfect time, freeing up the spot for you." Li Chang'an was also quite pleased. To that fellow cultivator, may you find peace on your journey. Chapter 251, Chapter 189, Chang'an Mountain Lord returning to King. Li Chang'an had thought this matter would take some time, but he never expected it to be settled so quickly. According to Su Yuyan's explanation, the place where the spirit vein was located was called Kui Ping Mountain, and it had a total of 4 main peaks. Each of the main peaks benefited from the Tier 2 spirit vein. 3 of the main peaks were already occupied. The vacant main peak happened to be the one with the densest spiritual power. At its very core, the concentration of spiritual power was even faintly approaching Tier 3. However, it was also the most expensive. Brother Li, the lease is 6,000 low-grade spirit stones every 10 years. What do you think? 6,000 spirit stones, that's not expensive at all. Li Chang'an agreed on the spot. If he were just an ordinary Foundation Establishment cultivator, he really would have had to think twice. But not only did he possess multiple skills, he could also use his status as a tribulation cultivator to go out and make extra money from time to time. It was more than enough to cover the lease. The next day, the two of them arrived at Kui Ping Mountain, the location of the Tier 2 spirit vein. From a distance, 4 main peaks rose sharply from the ground. The tallest was a full 10,000 meters high, appearing to connect with the sky. Brother Li, that main peak is named Panshi Mountain. After you move in, you can change its name to whatever you like. The other 3, slightly shorter peaks are Kui Zhu Peak, Zume Peak, and Chisong Peak. The spiritual power concentration on each of them is a bit weaker. Su Yuyan explained in detail, her voice clear and sweet. The occupants of those 3 main peaks were all Foundation Establishment cultivators, and they had all reached the middle stage of Foundation Establishment. Furthermore, each of them possessed skills of at least Tier 2 middle grade. These 3 were long-term residents and were on rather good terms with one another. Since Li Chang'an would be living here for the long term, he would inevitably have to interact with them, which was why Su Yuyan's explanation was so thorough. Brother Li, the entirety of Panshi Mountain is nourished by the Tier 2 spirit vein. At the foot of Panshi Mountain and in the surrounding area, the spiritual power concentration reaches Tier 1. You can cultivate spirit fields, create a spirit lake, or even establish a marketplace. Nearby, there is also a small mortal country with a population of 1 million. They will be under your rule as well. All in all, this was by no means a bad deal for Li Chang'an. In addition to the main body of Panshi Mountain, he would also own a large surrounding area, which even included a mortal realm. On normal days, if he grew weary of his pursuit of cultivation immortality, he could enter the mortal realm, assume various identities, and amuse himself in the world of mortals to relax. Although the mortal realm lacked spiritual power, a cultivator could experience the feeling of being high above it all. With a single thought, they could change the fates of countless people. They could do whatever they wanted. Legend had it that in ancient times, there was a path known as from immortal to mortal, which required a cultivator to live in the mortal realm for an extended period. However, the actual purpose of this path is no longer known. Li Chang'an and Su Yuyan flew closer, arriving at the foot of Panshi Mountain. The spiritual power here was already quite dense, nearly reaching the level of Tier 2. At the entrance to the mountain stood a giant boulder. On the stone, the 3 large words Panshi Mountain were carved in a flamboyant script. Su Yuyan smiled and asked, "Brother Li, would you like to rename the mountain?" "Let me think." Li Chang'an pondered for a moment. The name Panshi Mountain is actually quite good. As steadfast as bedrock, unmoving and unafraid of the ravages of time. but he faintly felt the name didn't quite align with his own path. With a grand wave of his hand, he erased the 3 words Panchi Mountain and carved a new name in their place. Chang'an Mountain. Looking at the new name, Li Chang'an felt a sense of enlightenment wash over him. I seek no fame or glory in this life, only for my immortal Tao to be everlasting. He didn't need to advance quickly, only far and steadily. Step by step. One day, he would glimpse the legendary realm of eternal life. A moment later, the two of them arrived atop Chang'an Mountain. Li Chang'an stood on the summit, gazing out at the world below. Everything seemed minuscule, as if the entire world lay at his feet. Excellent. He was extremely satisfied. Back in Yellow Crane Immortal City, he had always felt a sense of pressure, simply because the lofty core formation master resided on Yellow Crane Mountain. But here, he himself was at the very top. Li Chang'an immediately signed the spirit contract with Su Yuyan and paid 20 years of the lease in one go, a whopping 12,000 spirit stones. He had wanted to lease it for even more years. But Su Yuyan told him that he couldn't lease it for too long for the time being. This was because a great change was imminent in the Black Dragon Mountain range, and the resulting instability would likely spread to this region. Instability? Li Chang'an asked, puzzled. Su Yuyan explained. Not long ago, Huang He Master had taken his eldest disciple and left Yellow Crane Mountain, heading deep into the Black Dragon Mountain range. He left his second disciple, Zaihu Hong, to manage the mountain in his absence. His reason for entering the Black Dragon Mountain range was just as the rumors claimed. He intended to hunt a Tier 3 Demon King, obtain its demon core, and use it to bolster his spiritual crane's advancement. Huang He Master's crane had already advanced to the Tier 3 middle stage long ago. The next step would be the Tier 3 late stage, making it comparable to a cultivator at the late stage of Golden Core. Su Yuyan continued her explanation. This information hadn't yet circulated widely. Only the core members of the 3 great sects and the 7 great noble families were aware of it. Huang He Master had been plotting his spiritual crane's advancement for a long time. However, this time his mission failed. Huang He Master's target was a Tier 3 Demon King that had just given birth. After the birth, the Demon King was extremely weak, making it the perfect time for him to strike. But he underestimated the Demon King's strength. After a fierce battle, not only did he fail to kill it, but he accidentally killed its newborn offspring, sending the Demon King into a blind rage. Now that Tier 3 Demon King is furious beyond measure. Deep within the Black Dragon Mountain range, it is joining forces with other Demon Kings, gathering massive hordes of demon beasts to launch a beast tide against the human race cultivators. Chapter 252, Chapter 189, Chang'an Mountain Lord returning to King. Yellow Crane Immortal City was very close to the Black Dragon Mountain range, and it was also the domain of Huang He Master. It would naturally suffer the most frenzied assault. Currently, the 3 great sects and the 7 great noble families had all begun their preparations. If Yellow Crane Immortal City couldn't hold, countless violent demon beasts would surge into the heartland of the southern domain of Zhao country. The mere thought of such a scene was terrifying. At that point, the entire southern domain cultivation realm would suffer catastrophic losses. Every major sect and noble family would be affected. For this very reason, the 3 great sects and the 7 great noble families all planned to dispatch disciples to the Yellow Crane Mountain region to jointly form a defensive line, ensuring the demon beasts wouldn't break into the heartland. My master said that this beast tide is both a danger and an opportunity. It's a chance to temper oneself and acquire large quantities of demon beast materials. It's very likely that many exceptional individuals will distinguish themselves during the beast tide. I see. Hearing this, Li Chang'an understood. A rare beast tide. His Chang'an Mountain, though behind Yellow Crane Immortal City, wasn't far from the Black Dragon Mountain range either. If the defensive line at Yellow Crane Immortal City failed, countless frenzied demon beasts would soon swarm the base of Chang'an Mountain. That was why Su Yuyan had told him not to lease it for too long. If the situation deteriorated to the worst-case scenario, he would have no choice but to abandon Chang'an Mountain and move to a region further north. Still, this beast tide really is an opportunity. Li Chang'an mused. His Tier 2 body refinement required a large amount of Tier 2 demon beast essence blood. Some of this was essence blood from extremely rare demon beasts, which was difficult to obtain even with his current status. But with the arrival of the beast tide, demon beast essence blood would become much easier to acquire. Furthermore, the spiritual ink needed for talisman painting was mostly mixed using demon beast blood, and much of the talisman paper was also made from demon beast hide. Materials from demon beasts could also be used to craft puppets. After the beast tide begins, a massive number of demon beasts will surely die. The prices for all sorts of demon beast materials will drop, while the demand for talismans and puppets will increase, and their prices might rise slightly. Chang'an calculated silently. As long as the defensive line at Yellow Crane Immortal City wasn't breached, he could sit securely in the rear and peacefully enjoy the opportunities brought by this beast tide. Su Yuyan asked, "Brother Li, the Xian Cloud sect will be recruiting loose cultivators to resist the beast tide. A foundation establishment cultivator like you would receive a handsome reward just for going. Are you interested?" "No, I'm not fond of fighting and killing. I'd rather just cultivate in peace." "I knew it, but you still need to be prepared, Brother Li," Su Yuyan reminded him. If the situation looked dire, Chang'an absolutely had to flee immediately. If he ran too late and ran into a Tier 3 Demon King, he would be in big trouble. Chang'an smiled. "Don't worry, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's escaping with my life." With divination at his disposal, he didn't need to worry about this matter. "Yuyan, when is the beast tide likely to start?" "I don't know either." Su Yuyan shook her head. Based on past experience, it could start very soon, or it could be several more years. After some conversation, the two of them left Chang'an Mountain and returned to Yellow Crane Immortal City. Chang'an packed up all his belongings in the residence. Meanwhile, Su Yuyan handed the leasing spirit contract to the Xian Cloud sect's representative in Yellow Crane Immortal City to handle the rest of the paperwork. Just 2 days later, everything was settled. From then on, Chang'an had officially leased Chang'an Mountain and become its mountain lord. He informed all his friends that he was moving. Afterward, he found Zheng Qingqing. They discussed the time for their return to King. He had originally planned to return to King right after the foundation establishment ceremony, but the trip to the secret realm had caused some delays. He and Zheng Qingqing agreed that he would return to Qinghe with her once he had finished moving. The next day, Chang'an moved into Chang'an Mountain, bringing all his worldly possessions with him. He ordered Dahuang to use its power of earth element to carve out a cave abode on the mountain's peak. Afterward, he set up 4 Tier 2 arrays as usual, using the power of illusion from the mirror flower-water-moon formation to conceal their existence. After finishing all this, Chang'an slowly let out a sigh of relief. He stood in the front courtyard of his cave abode, gazing down at the teeming masses below the mountain, a sense of emotion welling up in his heart. "Finally, I have a place to call my own." From this day forward, Chang'an Mountain was his personal domain. In the past, whether he was in King Marketplace or Yellow Crane Immortal City, he had always been constrained in his actions, having to worry about too many things. But now, on Chang'an Mountain, he didn't need to worry about a thing. Even his 2 spirit beasts felt the same way. Dahuang was racing wildly across the mountain, its face full of joy, tongue lolling out. It was in high spirits, practically radiating a sense of freedom. The profound water turtle, for its part, immediately dug out a massive pond, used the small cloud rain technique to fill it, and began to swim around contentedly. One could tell they had been cooped up for far too long. Chang'an Mountain was large enough for them to do whatever they wanted. A few days later, Chang'an took some gifts and paid a visit to the peak masters of the other 3 main peaks. The peak master of Qiuzhou Peak was named Liu Yuzhou. She had a slender figure and skin like fine jade. Looking like a young woman of 18 or 19, she was casually draped in a viridian robe. "Taoist Li, I was just about to pay you a visit. I didn't expect you to come to my door first." Liu Yuzhou greeted him barefoot, seemingly having just woken up, with a hint of languor in her expression. She was also a talisman master, and her skill in talismans was superior to Chang'an's. She had reached the Tier 2 middle grade. After some conversation, Chang'an left Qiuzhou Peak and headed for Zume Peak. The peak master of Zume Peak was named Yu Hongmei. She was a woman with a full, curvaceous figure and a complexion like a peach blossom. She looked more mature than Liu Yuzhou, possessing a different kind of charm. Taoist Li, since you are all cultivating here on Jade Screen Mountain, you should interact more in the future and support one another. Chapter 253, Chapter 189, Chang'an Mountain Lord returning to King. Yuhame smiled gently. She was a Tier 2 middle-grade array master, and her research into the Tao of arrays was so profound that she could be considered unfathomable. Finally, Li Chang'an arrived at Chisong Peak. The peak master here was an old man with a red face and a white beard named Xianxia. He was a Tier 2 artifact refiner whose skills were extremely high, having reached Tier 2 top grade. Li Chang'an spoke with him for a moment and considered them acquainted. That night, the masters of the three peaks gathered together. They all wore different expressions as they discussed Li Chang'an, the new mountain lord. Xianxia sighed. Alas, this Taoist Li's strength and skills are both a bit on the low side. When the beast tide erupts, it will be difficult for him to provide much help. They are indeed a bit low, Yuhame agreed, her voice gentle. Liu Yuzhu was still barefoot, a hint of laziness on her pretty face. Not only are they a bit low, but he's also a talisman master. He might end up stealing my business in the future. Although they had welcomed Li Chang'an with smiles that day, in their hearts, none of them truly approved of him. This was because they had all hoped the new mountain lord would be like the previous one, at least at the middle stage of foundation establishment, and possessing exceptional alchemy skills. That way they would have perfectly assembled the four great skills of pill, talisman, artifact, and array. They would have been able to complement one another. Furthermore, if an outsider came to purchase something related to one skill, they might browse the other three as well, increasing everyone's income. Unfortunately, things didn't go as they wished. Who could have imagined that someone with Li Chang'an's cultivation and skills would be willing to rent such an expensive spiritual land? Li Chang'an was actually aware of what the three of them were thinking, but he didn't care. He was very comfortable living on Chang'an Mountain, and saw no need to concern himself with the opinions of others. In the following days, he spent his time studying the Tier 3 array he had obtained from Yi Hao. A Tier 3 array is truly as amazing as they say. It's so profound that even looking at the basic array formation method makes my head spin. Li Chang'an rubbed the bridge of his nose and rested for a moment. After several days of contemplation, he was now confident he could set up this array. If only I had an array inheritance to learn its mysteries from, perhaps setting up the array would be simpler. Li Chang'an considered it for a moment, then temporarily pushed the thought aside. The urgent task now was to fully master that Tier 2 middle-grade alchemy inheritance. The Tao of alchemy was far more profitable than making talismans or puppets. In the hearts of many cultivators, alchemy ranked first among the 100 skills of cultivation immortality. Next, Li Chang'an spent several more days before finally finishing the setup of the entire Tier 3 array. Array activate. With a single thought, killing intent instantly filled Chang'an Mountain. The countless flowers, plants, and trees seemed to become part of the array, brimming with murderous purpose. But when the array concealed itself, the vegetation once again looked ordinary, no different from any common plant life. This was the profound mystery of the green wood transformation array. An ordinary foundation establishment cultivator who came to Chang'an Mountain wouldn't even be able to sense the array's existence. They would unwittingly walk straight into a death trap. With this array complete, Chang'an Mountain is finally secure. Li Chang'an wiped the fine beads of sweat from his forehead and let out a long sigh of relief. The next day, Li Chang'an returned to Yellow Crane, Immortal City. When he passed by the black market, he went inside as usual to ask for news about the Withered Wood Cliffmaster. Unfortunately, there was still no news of the man whatsoever. The beast tide is about to begin. I hope he didn't die in the Black Dragon Mountain Range. Li Chang'an felt a little helpless. After returning to Yellow Crane Immortal City, he went to the 10,000 Treasures Tower and collected the Tier 2 lifespan extension pill he had pre-ordered. As expected, this elixir pill was still effective, extending his life by another 15 years. With this, his lifespan now totaled 558 years. I still have over 500 years to live. A smile spread across Li Chang'an's face. He was in a great mood. In the mortal realm, a new generation rose every 10-odd years, and 1 or 2 centuries was enough to witness the rise and fall of dynasties. His lifespan of over 500 years was astounding even in the cultivation immortality realm. He could live to witness countless major events. Afterward, Li Chang'an found Zhang Qingqing. "Young miss, what do you say we return to King tomorrow?" "All right." Zhang Qingqing beamed. She had been waiting for a long time. That night, Li Chang'an stayed at Zhang Qingqing's residence. Instead of resting, he spent the time with her, discussing many insights about alchemy. The night passed quickly. Before they knew it, the faint light of dawn was filtering through the window. The two had breakfast and departed from Yellow Crane Immortal City together. Years ago, when they had left King, they had also traveled together, and it had taken them 3 full days to reach Yellow Crane Immortal City. Now, both of them were Foundation Establishment great cultivators. Their escape techniques were far superior to what they once were, and they no longer had to worry much about tribulation cultivators. The journey was exceptionally smooth. By dusk, Chang'an Marketplace was already visible in the distance. Along the way, Zhang Qingqing fulfilled her promise and told Li Chang'an about what had happened back then. When she had been preparing to travel to the Immortal City for her Foundation establishment, someone within the Zhang family had indeed leaked her location. That person was none other than another ancestor of the Zhang family. Zhang Feiheng. Cultivators are still human after all, and are bound to have selfish desires. Zhang Feiheng's cultivation is not as high as ancestor Yuandao's. His branch of the family holds a weaker position within the Zhang family and receives fewer resources. Perhaps due to terrible luck, compounded by a lack of resources, Zhang Feiheng's branch had failed to produce a descendant suitable for Foundation establishment for a very long time. In contrast, Zhang Yuandao's branch had produced one talented junior after another who was suitable for Foundation establishment. If things continued this way, barring any unforeseen circumstances, Zhang Yuandao's branch would have more and more Foundation establishment cultivators and eventually gain control of the entire Zhang family. Zhang Feiheng was too selfish and couldn't accept the decline of his branch, so he had secretly interfered with the Foundation establishment of several Zhang family juniors. Later, when Zhang Qingqing planned to go to the Immortal City for her Foundation establishment, he leaked the information to the Cao family, telling them to ambush and kill her on the road. Once Zhang Qingqing was dead, all of the Zhang family's resources would be directed to Zhang Lingfeng. So that's how it was. Although Li Chang'an had long suspected it, hearing Zhang Qingqing say it herself still felt somewhat unbelievable. "Young miss, you're not planning to get rid of Zhang Feiheng. He is a member of the Zhang family, after all. The family's ancestral lands still need him to stand guard, and he contributed a great deal in the battle that annihilated the Wu family." Zhang Qingqing sighed softly, her words tinged with helplessness. For a Foundation establishment family, every single Foundation establishment cultivator is extremely important. Furthermore, under pressure from both her and Zhang Yuandao, Zhang Feiheng had already sworn a Dao-hard oath, vowing never to harm another Zhang family disciple again. "Chang'an, I know you've returned this time to get rid of Zhang Lingfeng, but he is Zhang Feiheng's descendant after all. Zhang Feiheng will certainly intervene." "I understand. Are you confident you can deal with him?" Zhang Qingqing asked carefully, her voice soft. Zhang Feiheng has been at the early stage of Foundation establishment for many years. The amount of liquid magical power he has accumulated must be far greater than Li Chang'an's. In terms of apparent strength, he is clearly the stronger one. Li Chang'an smiled, his expression relaxed. "Don't worry, this is a battle I will definitely win." As they spoke, the two of them drew closer to King Marketplace. Just then, an old, booming laugh echoed from the center of the marketplace, instantly spreading throughout the entire area. Zhang Yuandao welcomed Taoist Li on his return. Chapter 254, Chapter 190, Shocked Old Acquaintances, Passion in a Familiar Place. That single address, Taoist, silenced the entire King Marketplace for a moment. Nearly every cultivator stopped what they were doing. They could, of course, recognize the voice. That aged voice belonged to the Zhang family's ancestor, Zhang Yuandao. For Zhang Yuandao to address someone as Taoist, they must naturally be another Foundation establishment cultivator. However, what did he mean by return in his words? Could it be that this Foundation establishment elder had once lived in King Marketplace? The crowd turned to look toward the horizon, their eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and awe, eager to catch a glimpse of this Foundation establishment powerhouse's true face. Among them, a few wore complex expressions. Could it be him? Who? Li Chang'an. Not long ago, news of his Foundation establishment just came back from Yellow Crane Immortal City. The one who reached Foundation establishment is really him. Could it be someone else with the same name? In the marketplace, quite a few people knew Li Chang'an. People like Luo Kun, Wang Hu, Chen Yuanshan, and so on. Back then, when Li Chang'an left, he hadn't told anyone for safety reasons. He vanished overnight as if he had evaporated into thin air, never to be seen again. Later, bits of news trickled back, indicating that he had gone to Yellow Crane Immortal City and was doing well for himself there. However, more than 10 years passed, and he never returned. The name Li Chang'an was gradually forgotten by everyone, fading into the long river of time. That was until, not long ago, news of an independent practitioner foundation establishment suddenly arrived from Yellow Crane Immortal City, reminding them of Li Chang'an. Could it really be that kid, Li Chang'an? His talent was worse than mine, yet he actually managed to reach foundation establishment. Luo Kun still lived next door to Li Chang'an's old residence. He looked much older than he had 10+ years ago, his hair and beard completely white. He gazed at the horizon and muttered to himself. Suddenly, two familiar figures appeared in his line of sight. One of them was, to his shock, Li Chang'an. It's him, it's really him. Returning to King. Li Chang'an looked at the familiar marketplace before him, his heart filled with 1,000 emotions. In this marketplace, he had completed his transformation from a mortal into a cultivator, set foot on the long immortal path, and endured his weakest period of time. The hardships and struggles of those years were as clear as if they had happened yesterday. Now he no longer had to depend on others. He had his own Tao field and had become a foundation establishment ancestor looked up to by countless loose cultivators. We're back. Yes, we're back. Zhang Qingqing's bright eyes were like water, her expression gentle. Dressed in a long turquoise-green dress, she looked just as she had back then. From within the marketplace, an aged figure rose into the air, his body suffused with the magical power of the middle stage of foundation establishment. It was none other than Zheng Yuandao. Beaming, he flew to the outskirts of the marketplace to personally welcome them. Taoist Li, I have long heard of your name. It is a pleasure to finally meet you today. Elder Zheng. Li Chang'an smiled. Ever since he first arrived at the marketplace, he had heard of this Zheng family ancestor's prestigious reputation. In the past, he was just a minor qi refining junior cultivator, unable to withstand even a wisp of the aura emanated by a foundation establishment powerhouse. Today, he could already converse with Zheng Yuandao with complete composure. Zheng Yuandao cupped his hands and said, Taoist Li, please, let us speak in the main hall. Very well. The three of them entered the marketplace together and descended upon the Zheng family's grand residence in the center. Outside the main hall, numerous Zheng family disciples were lined up on both sides, their expressions respectful and slightly tense as they welcomed Li Chang'an, a foundation establishment powerhouse with a different surname. Li Chang'an's gaze swept over them, and he saw many familiar faces. For instance, Zheng Yunting, Zheng Songfeng, and others. The swift passage of more than a decade had added a touch of age to these old acquaintances. Zheng Linger stood in a corner, her expression complicated. She no longer looked like the young girl she once was, having gained a more mature air. Looking at the still youthful Li Chang'an, her heart was a whirlwind of emotions. He's already at foundation establishment. Back then, Zhang Qingqing had tried to set her up with Li Chang'an. But at that time, she had been arrogant and proud, looking down on a loose cultivator like Li Chang'an. She believed he would never reach foundation establishment in his lifetime and only wanted a Taoist companion who had a chance of doing so. Now Li Chang'an had returned, having reached foundation establishment. The powerful foundation establishment aura that swept past her seemed to be mocking her short-sightedness from all those years ago. Regret welled up in Zheng Linger's heart, and she slowly lowered her head. In her current state, she didn't even have the right to speak with Li Chang'an, let alone become his Taoist companion. What was lost could never be recovered. Just then, Zheng Qingqing's sound transmission echoed in her ear. Linger, the one who saved you and your grandfather back then, was Taoist Li. What? Zheng Linger's head snapped up, and she stared blankly at Li Chang'an's back as he entered the main hall. She had assumed that Li Chang'an had stumbled upon some great opportunity in Yellow Crane Immortal City, allowing him to make a meteoric rise and become a Foundation establishment great cultivator. But now it seemed that even back in King Marketplace, Li Chang'an's strength had already far surpassed her imagination. How laughable that she hadn't seen it at all, instead assuming it was some old elder on friendly terms with the Zheng family. Li Chang'an. Zheng Linger's eyes turned red, her mind a tangled mess. She felt as if she were about to be consumed by vexation and regret. If time could turn back, if she could do it all over again, she would definitely make a different choice. Inside the main hall, Li Chang'an took a seat. Composed and at ease, he began to discuss the path of cultivation after Foundation establishment with Zheng Yuandao. Zheng Yuandao was an elder after all, with high cultivation and vast experience. His words about his own cultivation insights were of great help to Li Chang'an. In the end, he solemnly invited Li Chang'an to join the Zheng family. But Li Chang'an politely refused, stating that he only wished to be a carefree loose cultivator. Taoist Li, for people like you and me, reaching Foundation establishment is already quite difficult. Taking another step forward is next to impossible. Why not focus on managing a family and nurturing the next generation? Zheng Yuandao explained his philosophy on cultivation.